stop scrolling. Before you skip this video, listen to this. In less than 24 hours, a mother is going to bury her son. But tonight, hours before that happens, the FBI just put something on the record that changes everything. The girl who spoke to Nolan Wells in his final confirmed minutes just sat down, face to face, with his own mother for the first time. And somewhere in this story, a family is now under federal protection because of threats serious enough to cross state lines. 3 bombshells. One night. And tomorrow morning, Nolan Wells gets laid to rest. If you've been following this case, you cannot afford to skip this video. Let's get into it. This is the case of 18-year-old Nolan Wells. He went to Horn Island for the 4th of July with a group of friends. He never came home. His body was recovered days later, and ever since, this case has been nothing but questions stacked on top of questions. 2 weeks in. 2 autopsies still pending. And every single day, something new drops that makes this story even more tangled. But what happened in the last 48 hours is different. This isn't rumor. This isn't a screenshot from someone's cousin's Facebook. This is on the record. This is confirmed. And that's exactly why you need to hear this tonight, before tomorrow happens. For major things landed at once. Let's break down every single one, and more importantly, let's separate what's actually confirmed from what's still just talk. Let's start with the FBI. For weeks, everybody's been asking the same question: why is the FBI even involved in this case? Has this quietly escalated into something way bigger than anyone's telling us? Or, and this is the theory a lot of people have been pushing, is the FBI in there to manage the story, not investigate it? This week, the Jackson field office finally broke their silence. A full, official, on-the-record statement. And the tone of this thing tells you almost as much as the content does. Here's what it said, point blank. The FBI is not leading this investigation. Jackson County Sheriff's Office is running point, and will continue to run point. The FBI is providing support, federal tools, federal resources, but Jackson County is calling the shots. The statement describes this as a trusting, effective partnership built over years of working cases together. Now pay attention to the tone here, because it matters. This isn't a press release announcing a breakthrough. This reads like damage control, not in a shady way, but in a we need to lower the temperature way. Somebody at that field office clearly understood that silence was doing more damage than the truth ever could. Every day they didn't explain themselves, the internet filled in the blanks with wild theories. So they finally spoke. And here's the detail buried inside that statement that actually matters most. The FBI says their involvement is specifically tied to interstate threats made against people connected to this case. Not Nolan's death directly. Threats. Crossing state lines. That's what makes it federal. Let that sink in for a second. Interstate means someone in one state sent a threat to someone in another state, a message, a call, something online. That's exactly the kind of thing that automatically becomes a federal matter, regardless of how big or small the underlying case is. But here's the catch, and this is important: the FBI did not say who received these threats or what they said. TMZ reported the same thing. It's still unclear who was targeted and what exactly was in these messages. So here's where we have to be careful. Separate reporting, not official, but circulating heavily, claims a specific family connected to this case, tied to one of the boys who was on that boat, received threats so graphic they're almost impossible to repeat. Now I need you to understand the difference here, because this is where a lot of channels get sloppy. Confirmed, the FBI says interstate threats happened. Federal resources are involved. Not confirmed, the specific content of those threats. Who exactly received them? Until we get an official confirmation, we treat this as credible but unverified. Serious enough that we're not ignoring it, but not confirmed enough that we're going to sit here and repeat graphic details as fact. And there's actually a good reason officials stay vague here. If you name a victim publicly, or repeat the exact language of a threat, you can cause more harm, you put a target back on that family, and you can compromise any future legal case against whoever sent it. So the vagueness isn't a cover-up. It's protection. But here's what's not up for debate, no matter what side of this case you're on. Sending threats to a teenager, a parent, anybody connected to this tragedy, is a crime. Period. Grief doesn't excuse it. Suspicion doesn't excuse it. Public outrage doesn't excuse it. And think about the ripple effect here. Every witness in this case, every friend, every teammate, every young woman who happened to talk to Nolan for 5 minutes on a beach is watching this. If speaking up means becoming a target, why would anyone come forward? This threat story isn't just disturbing on its own, it's actively working against the investigation itself. Now here's the development that actually shifts the entire shape of this case. Her name is Katie. She's the young woman who was with Nolan in his final confirmed minutes on that beach, the last known conversation before whatever happened. For weeks, everything attributed to Katie came secondhand. First a family friend relaying what she supposedly said. Then Katie's own mother and sister posting on Facebook trying to correct the record. Every version filtered through somebody else. That just changed. Katie sat down, face to face, with Nolan's mother, Christine. No middleman. No relative relaying a story. Direct. And according to Christine, what Katie told her does not match the version everyone else has been telling. Now stick with me here, because the actual details matter a lot more than the headlines are making them sound. According to Christine, Katie has been consistent the whole time. She and Nolan spent time together that day, then they parted ways. Katie got back on a boat with her own friends. Based on their conversation, she assumed Nolan was heading back to rejoin his own group. Here's the detail that changes everything. Katie never actually saw Nolan get on that boat. She assumed it, because that's what he told her, but she did not personally witness him walking away and rejoining his friends. This is a massive distinction. This is not two witnesses giving you contradicting eyewitness accounts. This is one person telling her his plan, and nobody, not Katie, not the friends, not the family, actually knowing for certain what happened after that conversation ended. Both things can be true at once. Nolan could have genuinely intended to go back to the boat when he talked to Katie. And something could have changed in the gap between that conversation and whatever came next. A clean contradiction makes for a better headline. She says one thing, they say another is way more clickable than the truth, which is Messier, an honest assumption, based on a real conversation, that simply can't be verified either way. And that actually reframes the entire mystery. The question isn't did Nolan want to leave the beach? The question is, what happened in the gap between him saying that, and whatever came next? That gap is still completely unaccounted for. Let's zoom out and talk about where this case is legally, because there's a lot moving at once. After a July 15th meeting between Nolan's parents and Jackson County DA Angela Mears-Mrath, family attorney Ben Crump confirmed this case is heading to a grand jury once the investigation wraps up. Nolan's phone is also going to get a coordinated review, the family's own independent investigators working alongside law enforcement's examination. Sheriff John Ledbetter put it plainly, the Nolan Wells family deserves a thorough and factual investigation, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Meanwhile, the state autopsy, done the Tuesday after his body was found, is still pending. And the independent autopsy out of Washington, D.C. hasn't produced results either. Count how many separate processes are running at once: the sheriff's investigation, the DA's grand jury track, the family's independent private investigation with former federal agents, 2 separate autopsies, and now a joint phone review. Each one has its own timeline. Confusing one for the other is exactly how misinformation spreads in cases like this. Now, not everyone sees the grand jury news as pure good news. Former Judge Carlos Moore has publicly raised concerns about DA Mrath's track record, pointing to a previous unrelated case where he says overwhelming evidence still failed to produce an indictment. He's saying a grand jury referral by itself doesn't mean progress, and he's watching closely. But another attorney, Tyler Bailey, pushes back on that read, saying a grand jury referral is actually standard routine procedure in this county for any death considered unnatural or suspicious. Not proof of foul play. Just process. Both things can be true. This can be standard procedure, and this specific prosecutor's past record can still deserve scrutiny. The real test isn't a referral. It's what happens once the grand jury actually gets the evidence. Before we go further, let's clean something up, because it matters for how you read everything else in this case. Claim 1. A photo surfaced of Nolan at a pool party, and people said it proved he was alive after the 4th of July. Rolling Stone checked the metadata and confirmed with his friend Trocken Shepard that photo was taken June 27th, a full week before Nolan even went to Horn Island. Claim 2. A viral video went around that people claimed captured Nolan in an argument right before he disappeared. Shepard has confirmed, repeatedly, on record, that's his own voice on the recording. Not Nolan's. Two completely different claims. Both went viral. Both were completely false. And the pattern here is the same every time. When official answers are slow, the internet fills the silence with the most dramatic version available. Keep that in mind with literally everything in this case, including tonight's update. Now, the hardest part of this update. Tomorrow, Monday, July 20th, Nolan Wells will be laid to rest. Centerpoint Church, Ocean Springs. Visitation from 9 to 11 a.m., service immediately following. Reverend Al Sharpton will officiate. Here's a detail most outlets aren't even mentioning. The Mississippi Coast Coliseum voted unanimously to offer their venue for this service. The family chose Centerpoint Church instead, and the Coliseum responded with pure class, releasing a statement saying they fully support the family's decision and remain committed to supporting them through this. That right there tells you something about this community. This isn't just a grieving family fighting a slow-moving investigation. This is a community wrapping around them in real, tangible ways. And here's the part that's going to hit different. This funeral will be live-streamed. On the family's website. On YouTube. Anyone, anywhere, will be able to watch this service happen in real time. Think about what that actually means. A funeral is supposed to be one of the most private moments a family goes through. A closed circle of people who actually knew and loved that person. This is the exact opposite. This will be watched by strangers across the entire country who've spent 2 weeks arguing about GPS data, viral clips, and witness statements online. And I want to say this plainly, because it's easy to forget in the middle of all the theories and speculation. What's being live-streamed tomorrow is a real funeral for a real 18-year-old boy. Not the next episode in a true crime series. A funeral. Christine has said this service is meant to celebrate who Nolan actually was, not dwell in the suspicion and grief that's defined this story for 2 weeks straight. But here's the brutal reality. Everything we just covered tonight, the FBI statement, Katie's account, the threat reporting, none of that goes away tomorrow. This family walks into that church still carrying every single unresolved thread. A grand jury still waiting. 2 autopsies still incomplete. A contradiction about Nolan's final conversation still not fully explained. Grief, in this case, has never had the chance to exist on its own. Tomorrow won't change that. It just gives them a few hours to try. So let's pull this all together. The FBI finally went on record, confirming real support in this investigation, specifically tied to interstate threats made against people connected to this case, while making it clear Jackson County is still running the show. Katie, the woman at the center of this case's biggest unanswered question, finally spoke directly to Nolan's mother, and her actual account is way more nuanced than the internet has made it sound. An assumption. Not an eyewitness confirmation. And unconfirmed but credible reporting says a family connected to this case is now under active federal protection because of threats too serious to ignore. And tomorrow, Nolan Wells gets buried. This case is far from over. 2 autopsies still pending. A grand jury still waiting. And the biggest question of all, what actually happened to Nolan Wells in those final unaccounted for minutes, is still completely unanswered. We're going to stay on this story through the funeral, through both autopsy results, and all the way through the grand jury process. We only bring you what's actually confirmed, nothing more, nothing less. If you want every single update on this case the second it drops, hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell, because this story is not slowing down. Drop a comment below. Does Katie's account change how you see this case? Let me know what you think. Rest in peace, Nolan. We'll see you in the next update.